Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette, and we're broadcasting live inside the American Space Museum studios. That for over 20 years, we've been celebrating the birth of the American space age right here in Brevard County, Florida, downtown Titusville, right off Route 1. And always pleased to have beside me a real national treasure because he worked on the shuttle for how many years?
30.
Just 30 years. Eric Baker. Welcome, Eric. Eric, there, as you see, is a shuttle test project engineer, and he's been doing some programs with us the past few Fridays, just as you've done them for us for over a year. Eric is our docent here on Friday, so you come to the museum on Friday, you're going to have a real space worker give you their real experience about some of the artifacts that we have here. Eric, who'd you tour today, and what were they interested in?
Well, we had a family from Huntsville.
Oh,
Huntsville, of course, is the where the Marshall Space Flight Center, and the father of the one lady had been a space worker, and for Mercury and Gemini, he worked for Avco, who developed the heat shields for
uh-huh.
those spacecraft. And so he came here, and they lived here, and she was in town for a high school reunion, and she had her family with her, and we went through. She was able to, especially when we were in the Canaveral room, go. Yeah, I heard of that. I know what you're talking about.
Excellent. Yes, a good group today. We had a lot of rain today, heavy rain in the area here. And of course, it is NASA Worm Friday here at the American Space Museum. Most of us wearing these Worm retro T-shirts and enjoying our guests and all that's going on here. And Marty Winkle, my co-producer, and I have done something like 1,370 episodes in 5 years, Eric. So
I
we're
think
getting
this is number 6 for me.
numbers. Oh, great. We appreciate that. Good. And we're going to have you on many, many more. He's did a great program on shuttle upgrades not too long ago. We've touched at the firing room protocol. I see you got notes on that we're going to do one day, and this is part of it.
Well, this is everything that we're doing today. Basically, is about how the stuff in the firing room was scheduled and what we were doing.
And we love that. Welcome everybody to Stay Curious. I'm going to push the button there so I can personally say hi to you. Marty Winkle's watching there with any of your questions and comments. And there's the live red button up there to show that we are indeed going here. Marty chose the one of my last slides of today's show is the Milky Way taken in late October, a couple weeks from now, 3 years ago, or maybe even a couple years ago. This is out at Herky Huffman Park, which is west of Melbourne, Florida.
Okay.
Between Melbourne and Orlando, that's the lights of Orlando. But this is going to be a great week to go out and do some stargazing as the moon is 19 days old, Marty. Nate's talking like an amateur astronomer.
I thought it was billions of years old.
It is billions of years old. Good one there. And now we know about test project engineers and engineers in general, because these two engineers are going to sandwich me between my specific thoughts and sayings. That's for doggone sure. But you're right, Eric. In its 29 and a half day journey around the Earth, it's in its 19th day.
Oh, okay.
So where would you find that in the sky? And so we'll talk about that at the end of the show here. But let's do a little bit of public relations here. It's all about the flow charts, all right, on today's show. And I brought just a couple examples in here of flow charts are big in the days of when we did not have computers. So this is the whole flow chart situation for
that was
integrated planning schedule. It's not exactly a flow chart, but it gives you the idea that they use these graphs with a timeline across the bottom in what's going to happen on the vertical.
Now this one right here is dated 1975.
Mm-hmm.
So this is while they were doing the early shuttle work, heading toward approach and landing tests, and then
Mm-hmm.
eventually launches.
And
And
they've got
so,
the orbiters up here, year 74, 75, what they were doing, the milestones they wanted, new shuttle facilities being built. Okay, is this line? We've got modified STS facilities here. All right, in a timeline of when they wanted these things done. So they talk about strip and mobile launch platform two, and looks like having it need date ops construction back in '79, and they're planning this in '74. So, but this is to get your brain kind of wrapped around what you're going to be looking at. I find it a very interesting. I mean, well, he's going to explain it. Eric's going to explain it because you didn't have computers. So how are you going to keep
well,
track of hundreds of operations going on simultaneously around the world's most sophisticated airplane, space plane ever built? So let's do a couple little other PR things here. Monday, we're going to be happy to have back in the saddle here the astronaut wrangler Nick Thomas. All right, he's going to do a great program on Monday the 13th. He's been out for a few months. And Wally's October missions. And of course, I'm referring to the great Wally Schirra, whose MA8 and his Apollo 7 missions were in the month of October. And which begs the question, are you a turtle?
you bet your sweet ass I am.
There you go. All right. Then you'll learn more about that Monday with Nick Thomas. So we've missed him, but he's raring to go again, isn't he, Marty? And our sponsor today is Manned Space. Okay, a NASA Manned Space is how you find it on Facebook. They've got they got more. We've got about 14,000 on our Facebook. I think they're pushing over 25. But our good friend Mitch Rothman and his wife Paula administrate this. They stick true to Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo era. There is their NASA Manned Space Facebook page. Please go like them and follow. Mitch posts a lot of day to day, this day in history. This contract was given out for the spacesuits or stuff like that, and or this was the first test of a heat shield on a Gemini spacecraft, and so he keeps up with a lot of that sometimes we refer to some of that on our page. Sometimes I share his things. And like the American Space Museum, we have a manned space YouTube presence there where Mitch has a lot of archived NASA footage of interest that is owned by the American taxpayer, so he can put it up there and show it as he wants. So there is Mitch. Thank you, buddy. Is he on there today, Marty?
Not yet.
Okay, don't see Mitch on there yet. Jim McDade, he lives in Huntsville. You're gonna enjoy today's program, Jim. Mitch is part of making the 20th anniversary of making July 20th Moon Day.
Mark,
Okay.
Mitch is watching. I'm sorry.
Happy Friday from Colorado, buddy. Okay, good to see you there. And Rosalie's here with us, Steve Jokums, Tom Usiak, Jean Sumick. We can't scare her off. Thank you for watching, Jean. You're going to get a lot of insight to scheduling, and particularly if you all have been involved with any kind of the pushing the paperwork for an administration situation, scheduling, configuration management. You're going to enjoy today's show. And hello there, Jim McDade. He says hi to all of us. He says a PERT chart. What does that mean to you? PERT, P-E-R-T?
That means nothing to me.
He's in Huntsville,
Okay.
I know acronyms were pronounced differently at Kennedy Space Center as they were at Johnson Space Center.
Correct.
An example being,
Well, Environmental Control and Life Support System, ECLSS.
okay,
Here at KSC, we would say ECLSS. At JSC, they would say ECLS.
Okay, close. And PERT could be something like that at Huntsville. Did Huntsville have their own
Oh,
language?
each one had an acronym book.
Huh, interesting.
Comment coming in.
All right, Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark and Erica, the Kix chart itself, that is a PERT format.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, good. Anyway, uh, every July, we'd like to see July 20th be International Moon Day. We went for peace for all mankind, the landing of Apollo 11. And I can't wait to get into November and we start talking about Apollo 12 when we double down on um, President Kennedy's pledge to land on the moon for the end of the decade. We have one of our rarest artifacts. I pulled off an artifact here to show next, but we've got one real good one right there beside Mitch is a replica of the early Grumman 1962 version of a moon lander with 4 windows, 2 docking ports, 5 legs, and it became the lunar module that Buzz Aldrin's standing in front of with 4 legs, 2 windows, a docking port, and an exit hatch with a landing ladder. And thank you, Grumman, that helped us get these things over the years. And Marty was a big part of the Grumman group in retirement. What I did pull out and was going to pull it out of the case but didn't, as an artifact that we talk about. A lot of people don't know that there was this little round mini calculator, kind of like my star chart here that I talk about, that you should have to go out stargazing with tonight, where you put the date and month up against the timeline, and you do the same thing with this Apollo analyzer. And it was a timeline that you could see in the window there. There's a triangular window right above this little triangular window right there is where you look at what's supposed to be happening on the timeline.
Okay.
So it was a quick thing. It was probably Velcroed in the command module. You could just pull it there, put there, okay, it's, July 17th at Houston time, noon. Let's make sure that 3 hours from now, what am I supposed to be doing? 5 hours from now, what should I be doing? A way to just really quickly go over the
Scheduled
flight plan.
activities.
The flight plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flight plan. That's the flight plan. They're fascinating. They even had the moon landing on there, lift off, that kind of stuff. And this Apollo 11, when you come across them, there's 2 of them, front and back, sell for $150, $200, $250. The other Apollo 12 and up are more in the $100 to $125 range at our next auction, which is October 25th. I didn't put the slide in for that. Spared us that. So I'm going to quit talking here and turn it over to Eric. We have an orbiter orbiting the Earth. To me, will be the always shuttle orbiting Earth right there, taken by the remote camera on a STS-7, I think.
One of their deployed packages.
Yeah, that's Challenger in orbit there. Beautiful. We have to get the baby down, and so there's the last landing of an orbiter before sunrise in July 2011. And that's the missions from up at the upper left-hand corner, the return to flight of 114 to the end of the program, just over your left shoulder there, to exemplify that once it lands, you got to get it into the garage, and there's a chart for that. So take it away, my friend.
Okay. Well, the original concept for this show was firing room protocol. And in the Launch Control Center of Launch Complex 39, which is where the VAB and the OPF's Orbiter Processing Facility, the hangars, where we process the vehicles for flight, where all the action took place. And in the firing room, that was your man-machine interface for any given orbiter. And depending on what you were doing, all of that activity from landing to roll into the OPF was all pre-planned for every flow from STS-1 onward. The large artifact that you held up earlier was like a super chart that all this other stuff grew out of. Now, when they were making these, because we had to process the vehicles every day, and we didn't have the graphics in the computers to allow them to update the schedules. So they had a whole team of people working both on small single page charts to really big ones, what we call an integrated operations chart. And the integrated operations chart, in order to produce the document every day they had to put together, and you can see that this is pretty fat. It's got, dozens and dozens of pages. And it starts at the beginning with
every day, folks. Every single day. Okay, this just comes out, and then you have one in the afternoon. You said,
yeah, a smaller version, but this is the big one. This is called the KICS, which is the KSC Integrated Control Schedule.
now, by the way, while I'm thumbing through this with my dirty, filthy museum hands here, no, I wash them. Do you notice the date, everybody? Do you recognize that date? Is Wednesday, January 29th, 1986. Something very important happened the day before. And now you all know that was the Challenger disaster. So this is the day after.
Now, this right here is probably one of one for a full kick schedule still in existence, because these things were thrown away every single day. And eventually they were,
This is Marty's.
This is Marty's.
Marty saved this, and if you're, well, maybe I wouldn't say many are saved, but this is valuable history thing here. But why would they put it out after the Challenger blew up? Because it says here, all vehicles will be powered down until at least 8 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday, 1/29/86. So it was an edict to start the power down process, right?
Right. But in order, the system had inertia, and even after the disaster, the kicks still came out with all the schedules, because we had 4 orbiters in flow at the time.
That's interesting. The inertia, that's a good way to put it,
Yeah.
was the inertia of the whole process couldn't be stopped.
I mean, we were,
but people put this together and went to the printer
yeah,
with the angst of this tragedy on their hearts, right?
exactly. But I was on second shift on a different vehicle for Challenger. I think I was working 102 in Farnham 3. And so when I came into work, we didn't have a powered vehicle, but we didn't really know what the program was going to do. But eventually we went into the shutdown mode and went through the process of analyzing everything that we had done. But even that still used the same scheduling system. For the big integrated schedules, they had wall-sized charts with a metal panel, a steel panel, that you could stick magnetic strips that were like an inch wide, and then as long as they had big reels of them. Some were black, some were colored, rather in black and white with diagonal stripes. And as we go through the charts, you'll see some of those, because that indicated the various hazard levels. And so they had a team putting these schedules on these walls And every day a photographer would come in and take a picture of it to be sent to the printer to be put into this stack of paper and then sent out to all the mail boxes at KSC.
Just so detailed, so but this was the only way to do it. This was a I want to say cottage industry, kind of but a hidden gem of who's putting all this together, and who's feeding. How did the information get to that group of people to put it up there?
For every vehicle, at the beginning of every flow, there was a very large stack of computer paper with all the requirements called the OMRSD, the Orbiter Maintenance and what does OMRSD stand for fully? Orbiter
OMR.
Maintenance and Requirements Document. But it basically went through all of the required testing for a given orbiter for its next flow. And a flow is from the time it lands from its previous mission, rolls into the OPF, and then all the way to the next launch. So here we are rolling in, and there is a schedule. If you go to the
Go to this one here, yeah.
that one. This is basically the schedule for the landing runway ops. And this is so that all the people know where they need to be and when their activity is scheduled after the orbiter lands. Because when it lands, it's still turned on. It still has highly volatile chemicals in the rocket system, in the nose and the pods. It has liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen in the fuel cell tanks. They're powering the vehicle electrically with those running fuel cells. Just as they're rolling out, go ahead with your question.
Go ahead and finish that while they're rolling out. And this is STS-132. Okay.
Especially if you see a night landing, if you look at the base of the tail, there's fire coming out of holes in the orbiter. And that's actually the exhaust steam from the auxiliary power units that are powering the hydraulics for the brakes, nose wheel steering, stuff like that. So all this stuff is going on with these high energy systems, and you've got to have a plan on how everything is methodically shut down to get you back into the OPF.
Looking at the chart, what's interesting is the vertical bars are 10-minute increments, folks. Okay, so you can see the 3, 4, 5, I think, in the middle at the top, and those are 10-minute increments. Rain protection, install forward cap and liners, connectors, savers, close side hatch, with remote white room, pressure crew module, spot orbiter in the OPF, and then end of SOO-28 convoy ops.
Go to the next picture, if you would, please. Now, you see these big hoses hooked up to the T0 umbilicals. Those are the hoses full of the pressurized dry air that is going through the system, purging it, cooling it, and also hooked up Freon lines because the orbiter is still turned on, and you've got to cool all the electronics, and especially the fuel cells have to have cooling going through them.
Mm-hmm.
So all that stuff is still on while it's being towed, and there's these big trucks with these big booms with these long hoses hooked to them that are driven by semi-tractor trailers full of equipment that normally would be sitting outside of an OPF or on the mobile launcher or at the pad, but it has to move with the vehicle while it's still turned on, being towed back into the hangar.
Well, I'm enjoying all this. Hope you are. The Dave Stangy's watching with Larry Puskar in a bar in Clairvoy, Michigan. Okay, guys, bottoms up.
Have a
All
round for
right.
us.
Amy Collins, who is a space worker, obviously, says at the end, section 5 of the entry checklist, they had a power down and configured things for a handover. It was very formal. And it was formal, huh?
Basically, because just like when you launch the vehicle, when you clear the tower, all control passes over to mission control. When the vehicle lands, there is a formal handover from JSC back to Kennedy, where the orbiter test conductor and all the other people were now in charge of it.
Excellent. By the way, nice shirt today. Got a little bit of everything on there. Orbiters, some
Payloads and
TDRS I
yeah.
see on there. So thank you very much. Marty's got a question. So glad y'all watching today. You're the smartest group of video podcast watchers ever.
You know, RJ Jubilee is asking, when they make up those charts for the next day, do they do that overnight or the night crew? How many hours does it take to put one of these books together?
Well, every 24 hours they update it, and as we get into the daily schedules, they have 4 days of detail, and then like 7 days or 6 days of future. That's not as quite as detailed as the 4-day part, but they crank it out and they increment it. Those daily schedules, if today is Monday, the lead column tomorrow will be Tuesday. So they're updated every 24 hours, and it's
an evolving process.
Yeah.
It's just not like you stop here and you get a new schedule. It's just evolving one day to the next.
Right.
Good stuff going on here between my two engineers, and I'm learning more about PERT that I really thought was a hair shampoo. But Jim McDade's elaborating more for us here that program evaluation and review technique is disciplined management technique involving computer processing. And
It's what
thank
pie
you for
charts grow up to
elaborating
be.
there. That PERT used to give my hair a good body back in the day. Remember that? I think that's the one they advertised to put a pearl in it. It would take forever to go to the bottom.
But I don't know if you missed it, but I said, pie charts want to grow up to be PERTs.
Okay. Pie charts when I grow up be PERTs. My phone's, well, that's all right, Marty. You can let that bill collector just keep calling me. All right.
Now,
not really.
go to the next slide. Okay.
Oh,
now-
that's the
Now this is the
cover.
This
what
is
we're
the
showing.
cover, and if you could read it all the way down, it basically, each section goes through the parts of the facility of Kennedy Space Center that their schedule will deal with, starting with the Space Shuttle integrated operations,
Assessment summary, KSC integrated control schedule,
mini
mini
schedules,
schedules, support, the LCC, Launch Control Center schedules. There's all kind of LC39 facility outage logs. Then the LC39 approved facility modifications. Then you got section B is the OPF schedules and support. Section C, VAB schedules and support. And rotation, processing, and storage facility. Then you got section D, pad A and B schedules. Section E, LC39 miscellaneous schedules. And section F, industrial area outage logs. So now I kind of get it more. There's every operation at Kennedy Space Center has their own set of stuff here. As I look here, I'm looking at things in here like ball valve drain pre-op setups, waste management system processing.
Now, some of these
catch bottle drain pre-op.
some of these bar charts are canned and are used over and over again. And so they don't have dates on them, they just have the number of hours required to do them.
Here's something I wanted to point out. Landing gear maintenance, okay? And you got 4 signatures there by everybody. So not only is this an important schedule, it's also an important document of who signed, who approved it. Right there's your signatures right there. Correct?
Correct.
So it's it would be and then at the end of the day,
Now these,
are these microfished or what were they for future reference?
that I do not know. The
What? What?
The
Oh,
we,
write
we
this
had
down,
some
Marty.
stuff that eventually got microfished. Things like
And that's taking a photograph of them. For all you don't know what microfiche is, it's a small little strip of
but I know
record
we some of
keeping.
our logbooks eventually got microfished. Some of our engineering flight crew briefings
Mhm.
ended up on microfiche. Some eventually got to CDs when CD storage became big.
But we're enjoying Eric Baker here. He's a docent, a national treasure, working 30 years on our great
Now, if you go to
shuttle
the next
program.
slide, this shows you the difference between the original one that, from 1986, and this is in 2011 when we had gone digital and we could crank these things out, much faster and
Yeah, and more legible even
Yeah.
at a glance
Well,
in there.
these
But
things,
there's what you were talking about.
yeah.
And that's an operations assessment summary. Again, 10-minute intervals of a day in the life of somebody.
Well, now these are bigger than 10 minutes.
Okay,
The
I could look that up there as I got it on board here. That
Because-
one says,
because that should be that's like a whole month there at the top.
oh, okay, gotcha.
So those are days of the week. So those are 24-hour increments.
All right, so you realize that. Then this is the final way it looked like.
This is what it looked like computerized.
Amy Collins mentioned these days they're digitizing the microfiche to PDF. Of course, that's cool. And John McGill's up in Detroit. Maybe his fingers crossed for the Tigers baseball team to win tonight. Mine are. I'm a Tiger fan growing up in Findlay, Ohio, not too far, about 2 hours south of Detroit. Shuttle landing runway ops. We were kind of looking at that. You said the S00028 there. You call that the Sioux?
Sue.
Sue.
That would be Sue 28 and then dot 300. You might on
I don't
any
want to get ahead of you here,
Yeah.
but you got
I was curious how you got back to that one.
that one.
Yeah. But here and
Where you
go
want
on.
me to go?
Go
Okay.
to the right. Now, past that one. Okay, so that's
OV 102, as
Now-
everybody would know,
now
is
that
Columbia.
now that was supposed to be for next week. That's integrated ops.
Well, we'll save that for next week.
Okay, this is an orbiter OPF assessment summary. This is basically the flow of the activity from landing to rollout. So you saw the picture of the orbiter going into the hangar, and the first week or so is strictly spent doing checkout of all the problems that you had during the mission. And you have only a short period of time, about a week or so, before they have to start deconfiguring the payload bay and reconfiguring for a different payload. And
January, February, March are across the top, a little bit of April. This is a DoD mission.
yeah, but you can
for,
see,
with
but-
the
but you-
Discovery, OV 103.
but you can see that the last little thing is now this one is getting ready to go back to California. This assessment is the processing to basically safe the vehicle for transport, because you see it's okay to ferry at the far right.
Okay.
So we've got
I
three,
do see
we
right
three
at the
have
bottom.
3 assessments in here. One for 103, one for 102, and one for 104, I believe. And each one is doing something different. If you go to the next one, this is the 104 assessment, and it's, getting ready for a flight. Now, of course, because of the Challenger disaster, this schedule just, was flushed down the toilet, and all the orbiters went into recovery mode and analysis, and a lot of mod activity went on for all the vehicles during that stand down.
Yeah, this was 61G, is what they were assessing, which was been the 36 shuttle. But trying to see what the payload was on that.
And then if you go to the next one, the next slide.
Payload. Didn't mention a payload on it, but this is 1985 to 86 fiscal year here, is like you said. Oh, I hit that one.
Go
right?
back again.
Back here.
Okay.
That's OV 104, your operations assessment. Back again?
Yeah. Okay. We had one that you got the wrong slide for us that had 102, but you had the
Well, let's see.
You had the
I
integrated
loaded up
assessment.
late. Not
But
that.
go ahead and go to the vertical one.
Okay.
Now this page right here, this is the activity for like the firing room. So it'll tell you which firing room you're in, who you're talking to, as opposed to, are you talking to OPF 1, OPF 2, and because that's all we had at the time. We hadn't built OPF 3 yet. And so you can actually see at the top of the page, it lays out what the computer format for the orbiter is supposed to be. The G9 format is called ground checkout, and it had a 129, which is the basic data rate, data format, and then a 2-digit number that had a specific format for the onboard computer data. We only had 128 kilobits of information coming down on the feed line on the data bus, and depending on the activity planned in the firing room would dictate the format on whose measurements got priority for higher bit rates and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see on there, there's a section for vehicle power. Is it going to be powered up continuously for several days? And is there going to be work on the weekend? Very important to people, who have to schedule their lives.
Mm-hmm.
The space shuttle was not quite as bad as Apollo. Apollo, basically worked 365 days, 24 hours a day for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
The divorce rate in Brevard County was astronomical.
It was.
But we had plenty of weekend work, especially early in the program when, like in 85, I think we had 9 launches, 9 space shuttle launches.
That was the most.
And that means that you had 9 of these flows going in parallel, one after the other, so that you'd have one vehicle launch, then another one coming behind it, and then a third one. And in 85, we had all 4 vehicles in flow at the time. We had 102, 099, 103, and 104. And each one, because we had 4 firing rooms, but initially in the program, starting in 1980, firing room 1 was where 102 was. That was the only orbiter we had. And so there's 4 firing rooms in the Launch Control Center. The second room was dedicated to ground software support. And all of the software that monitored the vehicle was written by the engineers in Firenum 2, basically. And they would basically, instead of talking to a vehicle, they would talk to the mainframe downstairs and start programming. A modified Fortran called Ground Operations Aerospace Language, or GOAL. And so each firing room, as you look at it and you see what vehicle you're working on, you would have to have a data bank associated with that loaded into that firing room, and then specific programs loaded into the consoles for each of the subsystems. And all of that had to be, that was also on the schedule. You know, are they doing a mass memory load? Are they updating the software that's going to go into the orbiter from the launch processing system? And that's done, there's a reload done after that about 1 week period when the vehicle lands, and they finish all the stuff from the previous mission. Now they have to load the software basically for the next mission. And the stuff that changes flight-wise is mainly ground or guidance, navigation, and control, and payload stuff. Everything else is pretty much the same, but those are the two big things that change. And how much of the payload stuff you get depends on, is the payload going to be installed in the horizontal? Is it going to be installed in the vertical? Or are you going to have to use some of that software to do the checkout before you install the payload in the vertical? So all of those things go into just a few lines at the top to let all that other stuff down below it on any given day occur at the right time. Now, once we got multiple vehicles going, you had to understand, where is my orbiter? Because the prime orbiter was always in Firing Room 1 initially. And all the other orbiters were assigned to another room, Firing Room 3, and eventually they had to split Firing Room 2 up to either do half of it in software and half of it for an orbiter. And then originally Firing Room 4 was a big scheduling room that had those giant wall murals with the magnetic panels and all those strips of magnetic material to make those big schedules. When we got 4 orbiters, you know, we couldn't afford to do that anymore. We had to move that to another room because we needed the firing room back.
Yeah.
And initially it was about half the size of a normal firing room because they still had a scheduling room in there, but eventually it became, Firing Room 4 eventually became the prime launch firing room, that when they updated to the fancy furniture, it had all the wood grain in it. But
Okay.
on the door of every firing room was a placard saying what orbiter's in there, you know, what flow is it. So when you go there to do your work, you have to have come with, you know, the schedule in mind. What am I working on today? Because every single vehicle has, you know, engines and, you know, all the systems. So the system engineer has to know where he's going. And one of the first things they do when they hook their headset up, they identify themselves to the test conductor at the front of the room that has operational control, says, I'm such and such, and I'm here for this vehicle. And if you're in the wrong room, they're going to say, well, you need to be in Firing Room 4 because we had to move them because they're prime now, and, you know, you're in the wrong room. And you don't want to, you know, do something like that inadvertently.
And there you have some behind the scenes looks at working, you know, physically working, not just at a desk, going to different locations, having to have the right have the right time to be there and so forth. Marty's got a question. Go ahead.
We got a lot of comments, Mark, and some have to do with the missions, but we're not really talking about the missions. But Amy Collins is stating by the end of 1985, everyone was worked to the bone and mistakes were creeping up. On 61C launch attempt, a bunch of flocks got dumped by accident. And then she asked another
A
question.
bunch of what?
Lox, LOX.
Okay.
And didn't the DoD have its own dedicated firing room in addition to the FRS used on those missions? They didn't have their own.
DOD Fire Room 3 was a DOD fire room. They put special, basically double door entry locks in, and they had to harden the room for what was called Black Crow certification. So Fire Room 3 was the DOD room when we were still doing DOD launches. And it was, you had to have special clearance on your access badge, and you had to swipe in, in order to go into that room. And, they had special trash cans with lids on them, so that if you made a hard copy of anything and you were done with it, you had to put it in there because it had to go to the shredder. But yeah, Fire Room 3 was the dedicated DOD room. And when they stopped doing that after Challenger and went back to Expendables, it was deconfigured back to a regular room.
Okay, great question, Amy. Thanks for being a fan of Stay Curious, and she knows her stuff for sure. There, a lot of people enjoying the conversation today. I don't think we need to show too many of those other charts.
Well, I'd like to go back.
Okay.
Go back to these charts here. For any given line item that you might see on that vertical chart,
Mm-hmm. Here.
there would, like on here, you might see a thing that says the testing involves a problem report, a PR, or an IPR troubleshooting, or it's actually running a scheduled OMI, operations and maintenance instruction. And these are the flow charts for those given OMIs. An OMI with a V on it stands for the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
One that's for S stands for an integrated vehicle or a shuttle. So a space shuttle is not the orbiter. A space shuttle is an orbiter, a tank, and a boosters assembled. So when you go to the pad and you hang the orbiter onto the rest of the stack, it becomes a space shuttle. And basically all of the integrated books like Su-7, Countdown, Countdown Demonstration Test, Su-17, Su-4, integrated, your initial checkout of, we just stack the vehicle, did we connect everything up correctly? Are all the signals where they're supposed to go? So if you have an OMI with a B on it, it's a booster OMI.
All right, fascinating. That is fascinating, and people's jobs and what they were doing. This is the paperwork, the paper trail, and my gosh, I can see all kinds of red and blue pens scrawling all over those things.
Oh yeah,
and post-it notes, maybe a little bit of whiteout
Well,
by the gallon used.
now all these things were done back when the word processor was your typewriter.
Yeah.
And the secretaries, lived and breathed on their whiteout supplies.
IBM Selectric.
And so,
Yeah.
this is when Post-its came out, we were like, ooh, this is really great, because we used Post-its by the pound, especially in the books, the OMIs, especially for like Countdown and stuff. We would have Post-it notes on specific pages for your system where you had something you had to do to give you a quick grab and turn, so that you could do your job in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, we've enjoyed this with you today. We're about finishing up here. Reached a point, right? We got Chris Callie watching today. Our U.S. Postal Service. Chris, we showed. Chris has made over 40 U.S. postage stamps.
Oh, cool.
For it. And we showed Theodore von Carmen yesterday.
has he ever done a duck stamp?
I asked him that. No, he's not. I do know a fact that Chris has never done a duck stamp. And so, how could he be a postal artist if not doing a duck stamp, right? He did Theodore von Karman because we're calling them Karmanauts, the suborbitals, not astronauts. And yes, a beautiful rendition of him. And I'll give you a call driving around to dinner tonight, there, Chris Callie. Glad that you're watching today. Marty, go ahead with that question.
We have two questions. One's from Carlton Bailey. What was the fail-safe system to make sure every worker was on the same version and page? Was that one of safety's job to oversee?
Basically, that's part of the schedule. The OMIs got updated, and as they were brought into the firing room, you know, in the kick schedule, in the integrated bar charts, it would have the rev number of that particular book. Is it Rev A, Rev B? We went through so many things that, you know, you were on Rev AM, AN, BZ, because it, you know, it had been updated, you know, over 30 years. So it was all part of that scheduling system. And you were expected to know which one was supposed to be in the room. As you would often get on console, especially if you were doing a normal monitoring, and you might see a big stack of books that had to go into your console bookcase with all the updates. Sometimes you'd get a complete update, sometimes you would just get change pages, and you would have to go through and put the new page in, take the old page out.
Quite fascinating there.
Okay, the second question
Mm-hmm.
from Mostly Park. What percent of the processes became common between missions?
Basically, all of the power up and down stuff, the things that were done repetitively per mission, like the things that were driven by the ground checkout. The ground checkout plan that came out every mission, you have things that were tested every flight. So you would do that, whatever the latest iteration was of that OMI, things that were done every 3 flights as far as ground checkout, and sometimes only every 5 flights. So depending on that big maintenance plan that came out first, and it was a part of that RSD, there was a thing just on the OMIs for that flow, had all of the procedures that were going to be run, and they came out of our documentation world with whatever iteration, because each time we ran an OMI, if something had to be changed, they had to document it and sign it off real time and get it approved in what's called a deviation form. And that was in a really fun thing called Dev paper, which was pink NCR paper, in the fact that you could take multiple copies, write on it, and there would be, wasn't carbon paper, but it made a duplicate just from pressure of the ballpoint pen. And it was called, the brand name is NCR paper.
NCR paper, remember that well. Also point out here that this is 1986. NASA did not produce this. This is Lockheed Martin, the contractor over all of the other contractors, later morphed into United Space Alliance the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So there was a distinction, though I've heard a lot of contractors, you know, built, maintained, and flew the shuttle under the strict overwatch of NASA per se. But this is a Lockheed Martin company document here. Therefore, they're Lockheed Martin, Dickinson, and Yount were the people that signed off on it there. So, good questions, good stuff from everybody today. Mostly Parked has got a question, something about did what percentage of processes become common? You already asked that one? Oh, okay. I didn't clearly understand that. Anyway, good. Okay. What other, this is a deep bowels of the shuttle organization. Thank you all for enjoying watching that.
And next
Thank you.
week, we're going to go into a little bit more of the integrated vehicle ops, VAB and PAD.
Okay. VAB and PAD instead of the uh, OPF in there. So great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric, for being on here. Wanted to mention a little bit about what's coming up this weekend. Is we've got 19-day-old moon. All right. So, whoops. That's between 17 and 21. 21's last quarter. 19 days means the moon is rising way after midnight. Well, quarter is, it rises at midnight.
But
So
it
it's
was
rising around 11, 10:30, 11
it
o'clock.
was a supermoon the other day.
It was. We talked about that super full moon, that 14-day-old moon. So 19 days means anything after 14-day-old moon in astronomy talk is saying, hey, the moon's not in the evening sky. We can go out and see some things under the bright stars. And we'll talk about that, see what to see here in just a second. But we have 10 humans orbiting Earth. This is going to swap out quickly as Shenzhou 21 is getting ready to launch, I believe even next week. That will add 3 more humans in the Tiangong space station for a week or so, and then Shenzhou 21 will return, and MS-27 is also scheduled to come back maybe at the end of the month, with MS-28 going up there with I'm not sure. I know there's 2 Russians, but I don't think there's an American. I think there's another nationality going up there. So 10, we want to know we want you to know what's going on in space for the weekend when you're around and trying to impress your friends with what you know about it. 10 humans orbiting Earth at this very moment. And as we look at the star chart that you can download for free at skymaps.com, that blue band through the middle of our constellations of October is indeed the Milky Way. Eric, a lot of people think the Milky Way is a summertime event. It starts appearing in June after midnight to see it, but right now is really the peak time to see it. October around our country is notorious for beautiful skies.
Best view of the Milky Way I ever saw was we did an RV trip years ago with my family in Wyoming at this one campground at Devil's Tower.
Oh, Devil's Tower.
No city lights.
Right.
As black as pitch, and by golly, you could see every star in the
That had
sky.
to be gorgeous. That I refer to the vehicle assembly building as our Devil's Tower around here. One of the Native American folklore of Devil Tower is that a bear scratched at the mountain trying to get to the Pleiades, the 7 little sisters.
Well, I thought it was the Indian maiden. It was
Indian maiden, that's right. We're on top of there too, up there. So that had to have been very fun.
And somebody, when you go there, one of the park rangers says that they talk about, well, no one will ever be able to climb that. And of course, a couple cowboys got some rebar and jammed it into the cracks and climbed right on up there.
Talking about Devil's Tower here on a devilish Friday afternoon. Thank you all for watching today on 10/10/25. Mitch Rothman, our sponsor today.
9 days till Goddard Inspiration Day, you know.
Oh, that's right. You were on that. Your birthday.
That's right.
Is Goddard Inspiration Day, October 19th. Tell us about what inspired Goddard. What was that about?
War of the Worlds had come out in book form, and he had a chore to climb up a cherry tree on the family farm to clean out some dead branches. And he was up there and he saw how far he could see. And so he thought, how much further could he see if he was be able to fly to another planet?
And that was an inspirational moment for the great Robert Goddard to build the first liquid-fueled rocket. And we honor him every chance we can. And you did an excellent program on that last year that you can find on our YouTube channel by just Googling Eric Baker's name there or not Googling, in the search little spyglass that they have there. So Monday we're going to have a lot about Wally Schirra, from a man who met him and hung out with him a little bit, and a real aficionado of Mercury and Gemini astronauts. Nick Thomas will be here. And again, we thank Man Space and Mitch Rothman for sponsoring this Stay Curious today with their generous contributions. So looking forward to Nick and the stories he's got to tell. And once again, are you a turtle? And you'll see the appropriate way to answer that on Monday. Marty, anything to button up over there on our Streamlabs production today on a Worm Friday here at the American Space Museum?
I think we're buttoned up, Mark.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this week. And I've enjoyed some programs. We've gotten some guests lined up, and kicking it off with Nick on Monday, and have a couple others in the queue. So until next week, I'm thanking Eric Baker for a great job this week. And then I'm saying until next week, Eric and I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us. Take care, be safe, and come back.